Okay, so this right here is my mom's 2007 Ford Escape Hybrid. And it's actually a pretty great daily driver. As you can tell, front bumper is off. I'm doing some stuff because the AC needed work. And part of those steps into doing the AC is replacing the AC condenser, and a bunch of other stuff. Basically, I'm rebuilding the AC system. To do all that, I had to pull the front bumper off, right? Now, while the front bumper was off, there was something I really wanted to do to this car for years, right? And that that thing was basically replacing this old shitty halogen fog light with a bulb that looks like it came out of a turn signal with one of these. This is a Jeep style headlight. I believe it's supposed to be modeled, or this fog light is modeled after a JW speaker. It's made by a company called Xprite, and it is supposed to be bright, or Xprite, or whatever. But it doesn't directly bolt into this bumper. You have to cut it out, do some brackety stuff, and get it to fit. Today, I will be showing you how to make this fit into that. It's actually really easy. So step one, pull the bumper off. It's super easy on this car. There's a few bolts along the top, there, and then there's a couple more behind the fender, and then a couple at the bottom right there. So, once you flip this bumper upside down, you can see there's the new housing that I had to modify and make, and there's the old one. So, okay, so this right here is the actual light itself, and I got it for the specific reason that this lens is actually the same size as the lens that came fitted in this bumper originally. And I was also kind of optimistically hoping that the bolt pattern for this housing would be the same as the bolt pattern for this guy. It's not, but that's easily fixable because actually this is a very easy fix. So step one is to unbolt this old fog light housing out of here. And the other reason I picked it up is because the actual plug-in looks really similar to the plug-in that is on the back of this fog light. They're not similar, and I will end up cutting this guy out and soldering this harness to the actual original Ford wiring harness, which is actually really thin in comparison to what came on this little housing, but as long as it works. So just to be clear, you probably could get this fog light off without taking it off the car. But for me, since the bumper is already off, since I'm doing the condenser and AC compressor on my mom's car, it's just easier to do it this way, and that's why I'm doing this way. So step one is to take off these 4 bolts that hold the actual fog light on. They're just self-tappers that go into the actual plastic bumper. It's actually a really simple process. Okay, so now that the 4 bolts are out, the main thing you want to keep in mind right now is keep in mind of the orientation. So you got one here, one here, one here, and down here there is none. Because we're going to be doing some slight modifications to this guy. So, if you compare the actual bolt pattern from this new fog light to the old one, you see the big problem is bolt holes don't line up. But, what you can notice from here is there should, in theory, be enough space for the screws to go in. By in theory, I mean there is, because I did that. So, to do that, what you need to do is take out the original halogen fog light, our actual fog light. And to do that, there's going to be a Phillips head screw in here, and then these guys just push out. Okay, so this screw that you're removing at the bottom is actually the aiming adjuster for the light. I believe it just aims it up and down, and that's really about it. Luckily, on this install, you still retain the aim light, so you can aim the fog light as well. So once this screw is completely backed out, what you need to do is just push in on these tabs and pop out the actual fog light. Okay, so now once it's popped out of there, simply speaking, get this out and pop it off to the side. And now we have our primary plan we can do. Next step is to cut this guy out. So cut out all this plastic housing that held in the old fog light. And then from there, we can screw the new housing onto this one. It's actually a really simple process. And it's definitely better than the alternative of buying $250 more motor lights, when these guys are like 30 or 40 bucks. Now, I have the proper tools, like a Dremel, to do this stuff. Thing is, I don't know where the proper tools are, so I'm just going to use a saw blade. It worked fine on that side, it just took a while. Okay, so now that this back piece is sawed off, the next step is very simple, to cut around the edges right here and just remove it so that the new fog light can slide right in. Okay, so now this guy is cut out and this thing is nice and flat on this side. The important thing right now is to keep in mind of the orientation. So that goes like there, just like that. From that to that, the top notch is on the side. Now, what I like to do is I like to use this notch on the side to line up this guy right here. So the main thing is to line it up and position it to a point where one that you're happy, but it's also in the middle. And then we use that clamp to hold it in place, drill 4 holes in through here, and voila, you got your bracket. Okay, so now the 4 holes are drilled. Quite simply, next step, pop these screws in there. Now, I know some of you guys are like, oh no, you're not using nuts. We need nuts. Nuts are amazing. I want nuts on my face. No. Well, you're perfectly fine to have nuts in your face. But if little self-tappers are good enough to Ford to hold these lights in, it should be good enough for me. But the only thing is, these lights are a little bit heavier than the ones that came out of it. But I think it'll be fine. We'll see. Okay, so now here is the final product dish. And yeah, that's not the best, I'm not gonna lie. But it does hold it in fairly securely. So next step is to bolt everything back on. I don't know how it got bent in this short time period, but apparently it did. But bolting it in, you should be good. And then after that, I'm going to be cutting off the end right here, cutting off the plug-in that's on the car, and then just hardwiring this together because it still has a quick splice disconnect thingy. But before I start reinstalling the bumper onto the car, I got to finish installing the evaporator, no, condenser. We'll go do that now and bolt that in first, obviously. So I just finished installing this guy right here, which is the AC condenser, which is the reason I took the bumper off in the first place. And now I'm about to reinstall this bumper. I painted it black with truck bed liner, and the fog lights are nice and secured in there. Now the next step is to get this connector to actually work well with the plug that's provided. So this is actually a Jeep. No, this is the old stock P22 or H22 or whatever this bulb was. I'm going to cut this pigtail off and solder the correct one on. It's really simple. Scissor, soldering iron, heat shrink tube. It'll probably take me like 20 minutes. The main thing is figuring out which wire is positive and which wire is negative. It shouldn't be that hard. I need to stop saying that shit. So I approached this problem the same way I approached most of my math tests in high school. I did what's called guess and check. So the black wire corresponds to the black wire on here, which is the negative, and the orange wire corresponded to the positive right here. I heat shrunk, or I soldered them both in, and yes, I was made today. This would have totally looked like it came on it.
Yeah. Pretty nice. Or actually, new parts today, this is regular color ones.
I'm happy with that. That came out, man.
That's a good upgrade.
Let's do tier 1. I'm telling you, it works really nice.
And the good thing is the pattern actually is pretty good. The patterns for some of these are just thin. That's nice.
And yeah, like it's aimed pretty nicely too.
Not even aim. It's just the pattern is just amazing. Look, there's no. By the looks of it, there's no obvious like hot spots or lines or anything. Look.
Oh, that's a headlight.
I mean, just look down there. There's nothing really obvious. There's lines or anything.
I'm happy. Okay, so the fog lights are in, the bumper is back on, painted black, and I gotta say, overall I'm really pleased with how this turned out. The bumper is not completely in, but it's in for the purpose of the video, just to clarify that. And as far as the way it looks on the car, I would say it's pretty well perfect. It looks so perfect, actually. And it puts out a great amount of light. It's just enough to fill in the holes of where the projectors are, and it does the job. Let's see. Once I finish installing the AC compressor and the idler pulley and doing all the other maintenance stuff to this thing, it should be a great little upgrade for my mom. I might actually get a bash bar too now, because I've been thinking about it more and more. And, or not a bash bar, like a brush guard kind of thing. It would really complete the look of the car. But yeah, if you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more videos about this car, which there will be, and that car, and that car, and that car, and that car, and like every other car, because they're all broken and all need some kind of repair, hit subscribe. There's going to be a lot of them coming. And do whatever else you do on the internet. Have a good one, guys. That was weird. I put the grill back on. I'm going to take it off one more time and double check everything, and then button up the front for good. Then start the headlight for the compressor and all that stuff.